Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. This is block number 9 of the Beginner's Botanical Quilt. There are 9 different blocks in this quilt, so to view all of the blocks, play this video until a green screen appears and click on the link in the upper left-hand corner. Before buying new fabric, I recommend you use up scrap fabric. I recommend you buy anywhere from 1/8 yard to 1/3 yard or buy fat quarters. So let's get started. This is the block layout. The dark lines are the seams between each piece of fabric. You have 2 main colors, which is green and pink, and I recommend you use a variety of different pinks and reds. If you need instructions on how to cut quilt fabric, click on the link in the upper right-hand corner. Cut your fabric in the following sizes. Out of your red and pink fabric, cut 18 2.5-inch squares, 4 3-inch squares. Out of the green, cut 3 3-inch squares, 1 1-inch by 2.5-inch piece of green for the stem. Your background fabric, which I recommend you use white or a cream color, cut 2 2.5-inch squares, 3 5-inch squares, 2 2.5 by 6.25 inch. On 3 greens that are 3-inch square and 2 different pinks or reds that are 3-inch squares. On the back side, draw a line going from corner to corner. Take the squares with the lines drawn on it and 2 of your pinks, pair it up with white fabric, your background. On your greens, 1 green square, pair it up with your background fabric, and the other 2 greens, pair them up with 2 different pinks and or reds. Make sure you have brought them front sides together. Then on each of them, go out 1/4 inch on each side of the line and stitch. Go over to the other side 1/4 inch and stitch. And do that on all of them. Then press your blocks and then cut them in half. Put the ruler back on that straight line and cut. And do that with all of them. After you cut them in half, you want to press them. So have the darkest fabric on top, unfold, press the seam on top, and press the seam going towards the darkest fabric. When you're done, this is what you should have. You should have 10 half square triangle blocks. Square all of them to size 2.5 inches square. On your ruler, there should be a diagonal line on there that goes from corner to corner. You want to place that on top of the seam. Then look at where your 2.5-inch square lines are, which is here and here. You want a little bit of fabric extending past those 2.5-inch lines over on this side and this side, plus these 2 edges. This way you can get it square to a perfect 2.5-inch square. So trim that side off, trim this side off. Now turn it to where this corner is over there. Place your diagonal line on the ruler back on top of the seam. Now place your 2.5-inch lines right on the 2 previously cut edges, and then cut your last 2 sides. Do that on all of your half square triangles. Place your stem fabric up here. This is 1 inch by 2.5 inch. Then your 2 background pieces that are 2.5 inch by 6.25 inch. Arrange your half square triangles here. On the outside, you have green and white, and then on the inside, you have green and pinks. Then in the next 2 rows, place 6 in each row that are a variety of pinks and reds, And then the next row, 4 squares of pinks and reds. In your last row, 2 squares of pinks and reds. Then at each end of the 2 bottom rows, put your pink and white half square triangles. And in the very bottom row at each end, put 1 2.5-inch square of background fabric. I recommend starting at the top row. Bring your stem fabric front sides together and stitch 1/4 inch seam. Then press the seam on the back side. Unfold and press on top. And I recommend pressing the seam towards the stem. Then take your other piece and repeat the steps. Do the exact same thing. Stitch 1/4 inch, then press the seam on the back, unfold, press on top, and again press that seam towards the center of the stem. This is what it looks like when it's done, and then here's what it looks like on the back, and you can see I have pressed those seams towards the center. This way the green fabric will not show through to the front on the edges. Next step is to begin stitching your first row together. Using a 1/4 inch seam throughout, bring them front sides together, stitch a 1/4 inch seam. Continue down the row, stitching 1/4 inch seam. When stitching all of the half square triangles together, you may find that some of your seams collide right in through here. So what I had to do on about 3 of the blocks, I had to press the seam going in the opposite direction. You need to do that, otherwise you're going to have all these seams coming together up here and it's going to get really thick and difficult. So as I said, repress some of them, and as you begin stitching them together and one collides, just press that next one, that seam in a different direction, and then continue. Continue stitching all of the squares together in the remaining rows, and again use a 1/4 inch seam. After you have stitched all the rows together, then you need to press the seams. So I'm going to show you at my ironing board how I'm pressing these seams. First, press the seams on the back side. So I am a one-handed person because my right hand doesn't really work very well. But those of you that have got 2 hands to work with, you would lift your block up like this and press. And with the other hand, lift and then press. And keep doing that until you get all the way down to the end of the strip. Then after that, you got the front side up. Then lift your row up. Make sure that that first seam, I usually take the first seam and just finger press it, going that way. And so hold it up and gently push against those seams, pushing them all in one direction. Always turn it over to make sure everything went well, and the first one didn't, so I'm just going to fix it. Fix everything on the back, because on that first row you've got all of these seams going in different directions. Then you would take your next row and press it, but you would press the seams going in the opposite direction. So here is the back side of my row. So when you lay them out, double check that the seams are going in the opposite direction. Begin stitching the rows together. Make sure that this seam is going down the center of the stem. So bring front sides together. Place some pins across here. Stitch 1/4 inch seam. I like to press my seams as I go along when I'm stitching rows together, so I recommend that you press the seam on the back side. Then unfold and press on top. And I'm going to press this seam here going towards the border fabric, only because there's so many seams coming together right here, it would be very, very lumpy. So that's what I recommend you do. After that, continue stitching on all the other rows. As you bring front sides together, line up your seams. Make sure that the seam on the bottom is going in the opposite direction than the seam on top. And I recommend that you place pins to hold those seams in the correct place. After you have finished pinning, then go ahead and stitch 1/4 inch seam, press on the back side, unfold, and press on top, and continue stitching on the remaining rows. Here it is on the front, and then here it is on the back side. Now check the size of the block. See if it came out to 12.5 inches square. Expect to have jagged edges. When you have this many pieces stitched together, it's really easy to get off and have jagged edges. So please don't be discouraged if that is the case for you. So lay your 12.5 inch square ruler on top and just center it within the block and try to get the edges to be touching the sides of the block. Now, as experienced as I am, I do have jagged edges. So, but it's not bad. It's pretty close to the 12.5 inch square size. Remember, complete all of your blocks first before you do the final squaring. If one of your blocks, or more than one, is way off, it's way too big or way too small, you need to check your seam allowance. Was the fabric cut correctly? Are your stitches too tight? There's so many variables that can cause your block to be off. Then go to the link in the upper right hand corner. Click on that. That's how to square a quilt block. And in that video, I will explain how to get all of your blocks to your desired size. So it's really important you do that. So now this is your last block. When you get this one done, go do your final squaring. To view other quilt projects, play this video until a green screen appears and then click on the links.
What? What are you saying?
I have no idea what he's saying.
It's Irish. Your last name is Oyedenoi.
Wait, that's your Irish accent?
Yeah. You look so Irish, honey. Okay. All right. Let's do this one right so we don't have to do it again.
Okay.
If you like this video, click on thumbs up and also click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Click on the bell and enter your email address so you can receive email notifications about my latest video. If you're not receiving those emails, go to your cell phone or iPad, click on settings, and turn notifications in the on position. This is Maria, this is Manny, and this is Jamie. I'm Cheryl. So glad you came to my sewing room. See you next time, and happy sewing!